This week, Jeff visits a track training school in Derbyshire. I take a ride on Honda's giant Varadero. But first, for all you would-be bikers, Claire explains the licensing laws in plain English.
If you're looking at swapping four wheels for two, you'll probably be aware that as of a couple of years ago, obtaining your bike licence has changed quite dramatically. The law now states that anyone wanting to ride a motorcycle on the road must have a compulsory basic training certificate, a CBT. Now the CBT is there to ensure that you're completely road safe. They'll show you all the basics, even how to fill the bike up with petrol, where all the gears are, how to brake, how to start, how to turn the corner safely, and how to act at junctions. It basically takes place over a day, and they'll normally take you to a car park somewhere nice and quiet. Now the CBT certificate is valid for up to 3 years. Now if you don't pass your full bike test within that period, you will have to renew the certificate. The only people who are exempt from taking this is if you're 17 and over, you're in possession of a full car licence and you just want to ride one of these, a little 50cc moped. So that's part one of your test, the certificate. The second part is what a lot of people find quite confusing, the practical part. Now really, this new litigation's not that complicated if you separate it into 3 different sections. The first one is the light motorcycle licence. Well, that's just exactly as it sounds. You can only ride up to a 125cc. You can take your test on anything from a 75cc up to a 125. Now the second part is the standard motorcycle licence. Now this particular licence, you're restricted up to 33 brake horsepower. If you're not too sure what that is, the spec on the bike will always let you know, but it's basically the commuter bikes. Now this particular test you can take on a 120cc or a 125cc, and you've got a restriction of the 33 brake horsepower for up to 2 years, but after that 2 years the ban's lifted and you can ride whatever you want. Now the third section is what's known as direct access. If you're over 21 and as long as you take your test on a bike of 47 brake horsepower or above, you basically can ride whatever you want. Again, 47 brake horsepower, if you're not too sure what that is, check the spec of the bike. It's normally the 400cc's or any of the multi-cylinder bikes. Now direct access is the most popular way of taking your test. It's obviously the quickest way of riding any bike you want, presuming you're over 21 of course. It'll take between 3 and 5 days depending on experience. If you've never ridden a bike before in your life, you can actually do your CBT test on the Monday and pass your bike test on the Friday. Now it does tend to be quite expensive though. You're looking at the top end of £300 or £400 depending on whether you've got your own bike or not. But don't worry if you haven't, because the training centres will hire your bikes, accessories, helmets and anything you need. They are really helpful, and any questions, queries that you've got, they'll answer them all. It's not that complicated.
There are some people that say size isn't everything, and there are others that say if you're going to have one, have a big one. Well, how about this for a big one? Honda's giant trail bike, the Varadero. The Varadero is powered by a 1000cc V-twin motor lifted straight from Honda's VTR Firestorm, so you can rightly expect it to be pretty exciting. There are, however, some engineering modifications. The Varadero uses a larger flywheel which helps to smooth out some of the lumpiness which all V-twins suffer from at low revs. It also slows the acceleration slightly. You wouldn't want to be sat this high up in the air on something which accelerates with the same force as a Honda Firestorm. Another significant change is the use of 42mm carburettors in place of the 48mm used on the VTR. But don't be fooled into thinking that the power of this motor has been completely killed off. It definitely hasn't. Still a very capable machine. It'll still produce 94 brake horsepower, which is about a dozen or so less than a Firestorm, but it's still better than anything else in this giant trailer class. Another modification on the engine is down at the bottom. So the sump is smaller on the Varadero, got less capacity, and that's to provide more ground clearance, because this thing is supposed to look like an off-road bike. Well, it does look like an off-road bike. The fact that it's completely hopeless off-road is besides the point. The problem is it's simply too big and it's far too heavy to cope with any serious terrain, any serious rough terrain. A few potholes and cobble streets, not a problem. But if the going gets tough, don't bother trying it on one of these. There's no point having an off-road bike that you can't even pick up. So it must be good at something. Well, yes, it's excellent at sustained long distance travel, hour after hour, if you like. And really, apart from your dedicated tourers like your Pan-Europeans and your Goldwings, there's very little to touch it in the comfort stakes. The seat is superb, as good as any touring machine. You're not going to get a sore bottom sat on that for many, many hours. And the whole riding position really is, well, it's first class. The foot pegs aren't too high, they're not too far back, you're not going to get sore aching knees. The position of the bars is just about spot on. Absolutely no strain on your arms or your wrists. You can sit there all day long. It's really good. Windscreen's fairly efficient, not bad. It tends to just catch the top of my helmet a little bit, so I have to just squat down slightly. But if I squat down slightly, straight over my head. Don't get a headache. No wind noise in my helmet. Really is excellent. Big bulbous fairing, which does a reasonable sort of a job at throwing most of the wind and rain away from your body and the upper part of your legs. And also, very important, when you're sat this high up, visibility is excellent. So when you're touring over across the continent through all your nice countries and your sightseeing holidays, you can see over all the hedges on the country lanes and you can see everything. It's superb. Also superb in a busy city traffic because you're in a jam, you can see across the top of the cars, through the traffic lights, across the junctions. It really is very, very useful. So far, so good, but there is one thing that really, really does bug me, and that's this thing down here, a side stand. And that's it, a side stand. We haven't got a main stand. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. On a bike that's capable of going for hundreds and thousands of miles and well capable of carrying some luggage, you need a main stand. You need to get it straight, upright. It's as simple as that. Talking about luggage, no panniers are standard on this. I suppose you could fit some panniers on there, maybe, well, you could certainly fit a top box on there. But you do get this rack as standard. Nice big chunky grab rails there for your pillion to hang on to. Not going to get aching fingers. Nothing to dig into the back of your fingers there. Very, very comfy. You could strap a few bits and pieces on there. Under the seat there's a tiny, and I mean tiny, amount of storage space. I won't even bother showing it you. You get very little under there. Might just squeeze a disc lock in if you're lucky, but not much else. And I'll tell you something else that bugs me. Really having a good moan today, aren't we? But just look at this. No, I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't see the point of this. Petrol cap there. Key in there, quite normal, nothing unusual there. Then watch this. Look at that. It comes off. Why does it come off? Why does it not flip back or hinge or something? I don't know. There's no reason for it to come off. It's just a nuisance. And not just that, but when you put it back on, you've got to push it down and then, you know, when you've got gloves on and that at a petrol station and you're freezing cold in the middle of winter, it's just not necessary. You just don't need problems like that. But long distance travel is where the Varadero really does excel. When the sports bike riders are stopping every couple of hours to realign their elbow and knee joints and maybe get some semblance of feeling back into their wrists, the Varadero rider can plod relentlessly on and on, hour after hour, country after country if you like. It's that comfortable, it's that effortless to ride. Fuel stops too don't have to be too frequent. A tank capacity of 25 litres will take you somewhere close to 180 miles before the warning lamp starts to flash. The Varadero really is an excellent long-distance tourer. So how does it compare with the others in this class? On price, it beats the lot. At £7,300, it's cheaper than Triumph's Tiger by a couple of £100. And it beats BMW's 1100 GS and their new 1150 GS by well over £1,000. I make that 1-0 to the Honda. Now the motor on this Varadero is, as we've said, it's more or less the same as a VTR Firestorm, so really need I say any more, you know how good that is. Unless of course you don't like V-twins. Not everybody likes a V-twin. You might prefer a Triumph Tiger. It's a 900cc triple cylinder motor, even if it is, I think, a little bit mechanical and noisy. It's a Triumph. You might like that. You might prefer BMW's flat boxer twin in their GS, even if it does have a rather strange wobble when you're sat at the traffic lights. And if you've never noticed that, get on one, sit at the lights and just blip the throttle, just a tiny bit, and you'll feel the bike go like that. It just rocks to the side. Not like that, like that. Nothing wrong with it, it's just a bit weird and a bit strange the first time you experience it. Now, giant traileys aren't the prettiest of bikes, I'll agree. They're not meant to be, they're built to do a purpose, they're very, very functional. No streamlined, sleek fairings and no racy paint jobs. If that's what you want, then you buy a sports bike. But they're all much of a muchness really, the Giant Trailers. None of them are really much better equipped than the others, they're all pretty similar. The dashboard on this one isn't any better, isn't really any worse than anything else. We've no fuel gauge on this, we've got a fuel warning lamp down there, but we have got a nice little clock in the middle, which I think is great, always very useful, especially if you're going touring for hour after hour. This one has got dual CBS, Honda's combined braking system, which is very, very good. BMW's has got ABS. Triumph's Tiger, well, that's just got reasonably good brakes. So really, you pays your money and you takes your choice. I don't think anyone is significantly better than the other. But if you want a bike that can take you to work and back every day of the week, commute through the busy city traffic with no problem at all, give you great comfort, use it at the weekends, good performance, and could even take you on holiday, then you could do a lot worse than buying one of these. And I think I know which one I'll be taking on my holidays.
And coming up after the break, Jeff's at a track training day in Derbyshire.
Now, track days. Have you ever thought of doing one? Perhaps you have, but you're not too sure of your abilities and you don't want to show yourself up. Or perhaps you don't want to drop your pride and joy. Or then again, perhaps you don't think that you've got the right kit. Well, there is an answer. And today we're at the Mick Boddice Track Training School, where not only do you get the use of a CBR 600 Honda, you also get to use their kit.
So the structure of the day, you take us through it. How do you put the thing together?
When the students arrive in the morning, we do the initial safety briefing. We tell them a little bit about the day, about the course, about the track, and about the bikes they're going to ride. We then kit them up in the leathers, unless they want to use their own, of course. And the first session out is a familiarisation session, 10 minutes to learn their way around the circuit, find out where the bumps are, where the bends are, and also have a look at the cones. We have a unique cone system here, which incorporates something we call a focus cone, which encourages people to look through the corner rather than looking down at the floor. After that, we move on to the first exercise, which is a turning exercise. We cover counter steering, which a lot of people have probably heard of and read about, but very few have actually used as a tool, as an actual weapon to make the bike work.
Anybody heard of counter steering? Counter steering. Anybody not heard of counter steering? Opposite steering, you know? Right bar for right, left bar for left, yeah? Counter steering is very, very valuable. If anybody wants to know how it works, come and see me later. But essentially, it involves you putting a force on the bars. Now the problem with sports bikes is the bars are down here and you're up here. Counter steering works by putting the bars forward, not down. If you ride like that and you go to counter steer to the right, for example, you end up putting the force down, compressing one side of the forks. Makes the bike unstable. Bend your arms, get your forearms parallel, then when you push the bars, all the force goes forward. And the bike turns. So bend your arms, you get 100% input. Keep your arms straight, you start to dilute the input, you dilute the results. That's why sometimes when you stiffen up, the bike doesn't seem to want to turn because you're pushing down and it doesn't work. Okay, everybody got the idea?
Now, this isn't anything to do with CBT. The idea here is to use a bit of counter steering and also shift the body weight to get round these cones. And so it might look easy, but it's not. But the idea is once you've actually done this, you're going to make a better rider on the track and be able to get round those little hairpins and those nudgery bits.
Try and chill out a little bit, just relax, okay? A little bit quicker next time. Try and focus on it a little bit further ahead.
We then encourage them, if they want to try hanging off. Again, a lot of myths surround the whole hanging off thing. People think that it's the only way to make a bike turn. And we explain to them why it works, how it works, what indeed you do and when you should use it. And again, they're given a chance to practice it. That takes us about 45 minutes, then we break for a coffee. During the coffee break, we talk about the next exercise, which is a braking exercise. Again, a very black art to a lot of riders, how to make a bike stop very quickly. And I think a lot of us are guilty of overestimating how good our bike brakes are and how quickly our bikes will stop. we get them to come out and practice coming down the straight and getting up to varying speeds, anything from 60 to 100 miles an hour, and at a pre-arranged point stopping as quickly as possible.
And this is all front brake stuff as well, I heard you say.
Yes, we do. We tend to encourage people to move away from using the back brake. While the back brake is good at low speed, in gravel, on grass, in traffic, in a high-speed environment, if you're braking properly with the front brake, the back brake really will cause you more problems because the back wheel should hardly be touching the floor. Yeah. So we encourage people to try that, and I suppose what we're doing is giving people confidence in the power of the front brake and realising that it won't do what the old rally grifter used to do when you put the front brake on and send you over the handlebars.
Yeah.
So by the end of it, we've maybe got rid of a few demons and dispelled a few myths, so that people aren't as afraid of using the front brake as they perhaps were when they came. And I think for me this is probably one of the most valuable exercises that we do. So many people fall off bikes because of overuse or misuse of the front brake.
Now this, on this empty piece of tarmac, this is the braking run this is. So the idea is go to the end, build up your speed to around about 60, 70 miles an hour, come flying down there, and when you reach the cone, slam on the brakes. Well, it's not brakes in this case, it's front brake only, because this is the idea. Slam the front brake on, well clear of the rear. Just saw the rear wheel hopping a little bit there, but that's still in control, straight line braking. Pete, what do you hope to get from today?
Well, with a bit like hope to improve my confidence and ability and speed through corners, and general better machine handling, I think. That's where I'm aiming at.
Have you done a track day before at all?
No, nothing like this, no. Not as advanced as this, no.
Yeah, so this is the first. What do you normally ride on the road?
I got a CBR 600.
So you should be okay on one of these?
Fairly used to it, but I think these are slightly different. They have, you know, sports fairing and one thing or another, so make the best of the day.
I've come particularly to improve specific aspects of my riding, mainly right-hand bends.
But what's the problem with those for you then?
I just feel a lacking in confidence on the road. I come into the bend and I'm not sure where it is, and I just want to go through the techniques and improve that aspect of my riding.
So left-handers, no problem?
No problem whatsoever.
So a right-hand circuit like Darley is going to be just the job for you?
It looks like it's going to be ideal.
And what do you normally ride on the road?
I've got a Superlight, 900 SS Superlight, and an old 900 SS Bevel.
Okay, well we better let you get on for the day then.
Thank you very much.
This takes us nicely round to lunchtime, where we go in and they have lunch, and the lunch is included in the day, so they have as much to eat as they want. We do a light buffet for them. And during lunchtime, we take them through a vehicle dynamics and tyre technology talk. We tell them all about how a bike turns, what makes a bike go around a corner, why the profile of tyres is so important, and why different tyres are better than others. Now, believe it or not, the most important aspect of a bike's cornering ability is its tyres. Has anybody ever wondered what makes a bike go around a corner? Anybody? Yeah? Right. And you know, of course, that it is, in fact, the shape of the tyres, the cone effect. If we roll a cone along a table, we'll notice it goes around in a circle. It goes around in a circle because of something called camber thrust. Thrust from the camber of the tyre. As you lean a bike into a corner, you drop onto a decreased rolling radius, which means that the tyre produces a cornering force, and it is that that makes the bike corner. Now, different tyres are built with different types of profile. This is a sports touring tyre, slightly flattened off in the middle, and we'll explain why that is later. But essentially, it's got a nice progressive profile. That means that as you come to a corner and you counter steer into your corner, the bike rolls onto its edge, nice and progressively, giving you a predictable and consistent rate of turn, which is what you want when you're out touring or out on the open road. If, however, you want something a little bit more sporty, you might go for something like this Avon, which is a sports tyre. The main difference with this tyre, other than just the profile, is the compound, stickier compound. Gives you more grip, but it also gives you a faster rate of turn, courtesy of the fact that it's more peaky. Again, this one is quite worn, not as squared off as the other one, and we'll explain why in a moment, but the profile gives you a more rapid turn. Doesn't give quite as much straight line stability because there isn't as much rubber in a straight line, but counter steer and the bike will turn even quicker. If you really, really want to go quickly, you can move on to something like this. This is a proper racing tyre, and notice the difference in profile there. It's a very peaky profile, which gives you a very, very rapid turn rate. The bike will drop into a corner awesomely quickly, but straight line stability is compromised. Now, if you're a racer and you're on a track, straight line stability isn't quite as important as the ability of the tyre to give you turning forces when you want them. So when you buy a tyre, you need to understand what the tyre's for. Look at the shape of the tyre. A flat tyre like this will slow down the steering of the same bike that's maybe been fitted with this, without you doing anything to the suspension or the geometry. So by fitting different tyres, you completely alter the way the bike works. Okay, chaps, let's go and play.
Thank you.
It's about confidence, it's about dispelling myths and rumours. So many people are afraid that if they lean a bike into a corner, they'll lose grip, and they're paranoid that the bike will just slide away from them. And we try to intellectualise away those fears and say to them, look, if you lean a bike, you actually get more grip and you don't have to be frightened. Yeah. And then the afternoon is split into 10-minute sessions. Everybody's out on track with the instructors, putting it all into practice and making the day work.
And I noticed, because I've done a few track days, but interestingly, you don't allow overtaking, do you?
No, we don't. We never have more than 4 bikes and an instructor out on circuit at any one time. The circuit's 1.5 miles long, and we say to people, look, if you can't find your own little piece of tarmac in 1.5 miles and there's only 4 bikes, there's something wrong. Yeah. This makes it a lot safer for everybody. You don't have to worry about somebody diving up your inside as you're getting ready for a corner. Yeah. You can focus completely on what's happening in front of you. And again, it gives people confidence. It allows them to concentrate on riding the bike rather than all the peripheries that sort of make riding so unpleasant on the road.
Right, and then if they've got through that lot, which hopefully they do, except for the one which we won't dwell on.
No, we won't talk about that.
And then the end of the day, you got a rather nice touch when they you do your little presentation?
Yeah, we do. We like, the instructors are asked during the day to pick out a bike or a rider who has shown the most improvement. This isn't necessarily the guy that's the fastest or indeed the slowest. It's the guy that's listened to what he's been told, taken it on board and put it into practice, and they get a little prize. It's only a baseball cap or a t-shirt or something like that from one of the companies that sponsor us.
And so, with the morning's exercises completed, and all the pupils now quite happy with counter-steering and shifting of body weights to make the bike move, and quite happy to slam the front brake on at anything from 60 to 100 miles an hour, it was on to the afternoon exercises, which was about cornering and finding the right line in a corner. That was one of the instructors making it look rather easy. It's actually not quite as easy as it looked, and not every pupil got it right first time. You can find out exactly how they went on Two Wheels next week.